Okay, say you're one of these pragmatic people and you're just not as concerned about wild areas. You're not into the whole cuddly animal scene. You prefer to be inside. So, why should you care so much about biodiversity? Let's look at these first three slides. You've got a tropical rainforest, you've got a Sonoran desert, and you've got the ocean. Whether or not you're aware, about 75 to 80% of the oxygen that you breathe that is produced by algae in the ocean. I would think you'd want a stable ocean if you want to keep breathing. The more species, the higher biodiversity, the more stable the ocean is. The more species we lose, the more unstable the ocean is. We're endangering our ability to breathe. Tropical rainforests, they're huge carbon reserves. We're having problems all over the world with weather and flooding and diseases because of warming. We need those those ecosystems out that are stable to help us fight against that. Let's look at some other benefits, some pocketbook benefits. Everything you eat was once a wild plant or a wild animal. Anything from the ocean. It may be modified a little bit through breeding, but all of them were wild animals at one time. Cows don't look like they did today when they were wild through breeding, but they certainly were a wild animal at one time. Where are we going to find other future forms of food? In the wild, not in a test tube. Recreational, aesthetic, scientific value, and sources of medicine. Where do you think medicine is found? In a factory? No, most of it's found in an organic molecule that's in a plant or an animal. That's wild. Let's take a look at the corn cob here. This is what corn looked wild. These are the first stages when Native Americans or people in India or wherever were growing corn to try and produce more food. And we've come up with this wonderful ear of corn, produces nice, sweet, succulent kernels, and grows at a very high, diverse rate. Lots of food, can feed millions of people, but it's lost all of its genetic diversity. It needs a highly controlled environmental condition. What happens, and this has happened, if a disease strikes this kind of corn? Well, they go back and they interbreed it with wild varieties, trying to find the gene that is resistant to that disease. Wild plants have numerous traits for resistance. They're highly adaptable to changing environments. That ear of corn doesn't have any genetic vigor. Where you're going to get it back from is wild plants, whether it's oats, wheat, corn. We actually have banks of wild seeds stored in different museums in case that species goes extinct, to try and reintroduce vigor into some of our primary crops. Again, where does medicine come from? Not a factory. Here's just a list of some that you're probably very familiar with: aspirin, codeine, ipecac, pilocarpine, Sudafed, etc., etc. These are all found in wild plants. This one's interesting to me because this has happened in the last 20 years. This is the yew tree that's found in the Pacific. And it was basically considered a worthless wood because it's very soft. So foresters in the Pacific Northwest would cut it down and leave it lay. Nobody was replanting it because there wasn't any economic value to it. Well, then they found that chemicals in the bark successfully treated ovarian, breast, and small cell cancer. Millions of people are alive because of a tree that was once thought as worthless. I take blood pressure medicine, I'm old, that's produced from the venom of a poisonous viper. That plant I showed you earlier cures leukemia. Where are we going to find new cures? A lot of them are going to come from the biodiversity that we have left. Commercial values. This usually stunts a few people. Ecotourism. We're going to go over that in a couple weeks. It's very important for developing countries. And these are the kinds of businesses developing countries need to reduce overpopulation. Just in the United States, in 1 year, $104 billion is spent on wildlife-related recreation. A lot of that is hunting and fishing. $31 billion is spent to observe, feed, or photograph wildlife. In Arizona, I don't have it on the slide, but in Arizona, each year, $1.4 billion is spent by bird watchers. They fly to Arizona, they stay in hotels, they ride around in rental vehicles, and they pay guides $1.4 billion. More money comes into the state of Arizona from bird watchers than golfers. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Now, I'm one of those people who believe endangered species have just as much right to live here on Earth as humans. Maybe you're not, but I think after you watch those slides, I think you can see where I'm coming from. There's a lot of importance to biodiversity. Thank you for listening, and